hear the cash registers. Advertising executives have used Hillsong as a successful brand. Are you proud of that?
It just makes me smile. It just makes me laugh. I don't know anything about marketing.
No, come on.
Well, what do I know? You tell me. I went to school, I went to high school, I went to Bible college. There has never been any master plan in terms of a brand.
In Hillsong's last annual report, it turned over $65 million, much of it going to charity. This church preaches prosperity. So long as you're helping others, there's no shame in wealth. Why do you think that people have such a big problem with Hillsong's wealth?
Well, because, people have a concept of the church that it should be poor.
Does God want us all to be rich and successful?
No. I don't think God cares how much money you have so much. I think he cares about what we do with whatever resource we have. Money is a corrupting thing, and the love of money destroys families. It destroys homes. It's not a positive thing.
Brian sounds incredibly hypocritical coming from a man who wrote You Need More Money, Discovering God's Amazing Financial Plan for Your Life.
I wrote that book and there's no getting away from it. And, sometimes I feel like I might as well have painted a great big bullseye in the middle of my forehead and said to my critics here, take a good shot. But, I actually still believe about the content of the book and what it's about, which is being positioned to make a bigger difference, and I certainly wouldn't call it that title.
Your personal income has been the subject of intense speculation. Are you prepared to say now what you earn?
You actually only the second person to ever ask me that directly. The first one was a newspaper journalist. But,
and I know that you said to him that you weren't prepared to answer that. I'm just wondering, do you want to answer that now?
If it's that important, yeah, I'll talk about it. My combined income from writing books and being an author and traveling and doing what we do and around the world speaking in various groups and so on, including Hillsong Church, is just a little over $300,000 for 2009. Mm-hmm. That's what it was.
Half of what Brian's paid comes from Hillsong. Most of what the church earns comes from its followers, many who adhere to tithing, a donation of 10% of their earnings. The main criticisms of Hillsong seems to be that it makes a huge amount of money, which is tax exempt, and that you and Brian as leaders must be rolling in it.
I think people who have those sort of perceptions haven't come close enough to us, because Hillsong Church is normal, average, wonderful Australians. That is Hillsong Church.
Is Hillsong a cult?
No, Hillsong is not a cult. It's not a cult. Cult is controlling, it's manipulative, it separates people from what's important, like family. And, we're opposite to all of that.
Thank you for a family and friends in Jesus' name.
Amen.
In many respects, Hillsong is a family business. Son Joel leads the church band, Ben is a pastor, and their daughter Laura is in Hillsong marketing. Born in New Zealand, Brian's mum and dad were Salvation Army officers. In the early days of Hillsong, his father Frank preached by his son's side. Until the day Brian learned the truth about his dad. What did you learn about your father?
Man, he's talking about this to this day still just knots my stomach. Because when I grew up, my dad he was my hero, really. He was my mentor. And was so right into my 40s. And I had never, ever seen any sign of my dad having some sort of a dark side. One time I had someone come into my office and basically told me straight out that a complaint had been received that 30 or 40 years ago, when my father was a pastor in New Zealand, that he had abused their son. And then from there, I ended up meeting a second person who said my dad abused them.
Sexually abused them?
Sexually abused them, yeah. look into the eyes of someone who's telling you that, I can't even tell you. And you could not hit me with a lower blow than to hear about that in my own family. And frankly, it's, it was like hell on earth. The worst thing by far that I've had to ever deal with.
In 2000, Brian expelled his father from Hillsong.
Yeah, I confronted him. And I can just remember him going incredibly dry in the mouth, going all dry in the mouth, and pretty well admitted straight out that these things happened.
Is child abuse a sin that you can forgive?
Look, you talk about me, you talk about Jesus. Jesus is a forgiver of sin. I think Jesus can forgive an Idi Amin or a Saddam Hussein.
What
it
about
doesn't
you?
make... Yeah. There's a huge difference between forgiveness and sweeping under the carpet. It's certainly not something that can be ignored. To think that it was someone who was related to you that was the perpetrator, it's just the ugliest thing you could ever be hit with, I think.
Through the crisis, Brian's family stood with him. The church was rocked, but continued to grow. Now his son also rises.
Well, we just believe tonight's going to be a great night.
We're in Argentina. 22,000 faithful fans have packed the Les Stadium to hear Joel Houston and his band Hillsong United. A pulsating, pumping mass. Everyone is jumping for Jesus. The band has sold 2 million CDs and regularly chart in the mainstream top 10. They may be preaching Christianity, but they're treated like rock gods.
But it's a little bit strange because it's kind of, what we do is, it'd be nice to not have to deal with all this kind of stuff, but it's...
So does it feel a little bit uncomfortable?
Yeah, it definitely feels uncomfortable.
How big can Hillsong get, and how big is too big?
I don't think there's any such thing as too big. What we are about is helping people.
In some ways, in this church, you're so forward-thinking and you're breaking new ground, but then in others, you're still not fully accepting of homosexuality, you're anti-abortion. Why not go that final step and be accepting of everyone?
Oh, well, I think we are accepting of all people. I hope we are. Talk about homosexuality. I mean, I've sat close to young people who are dealing with feelings they never welcomed and attractions that they never expected. And, I've literally sort of walked people through things where they were suicidal in a world, the general, Christian church world, that's not understanding. So to me, it's not an easy subject.
So is homosexuality a sin?
I think that any sex outside of marriage is a sin.
What about abortion? A sin?
The Christian message is a pro-life message. Jesus said, I'm come that you might have life. And so any thought of snuffing out life to me is not something that I would be about.
A sin?
Abortion. Yeah.
Be blessed, Hillsong Church. Thank God for every one of you. Amen.
What started with a congregation of 70
We're praying one for another.
is now 1 million strong and growing faster than any church in Australia. And its worshippers seem in permanent rapture. Truly, God has blessed the life of Brian.
Have you ever questioned your own faith? Has there ever been a time that you thought, what if I'm wrong? What if there is no God?
And actually there has. And I think that some would be living in a bubble if they never ever questioned their own belief, their own faith. So there definitely have been. If you talk about the big picture in life, after having been beat around the head a little bit, face some of the real issues of lives ourselves, having to go through the horror of finding out that my father had, a dark side which caused him to abuse people. With all of that, I am more convinced than ever that there is a God and that I want to spend my life serving him.